All right. Good morning once again. Okay, so just to recap on what we did last time, and I hope you can see my screen and also hear me clearly. Please confirm that.
Yes, sir, it's clear.
All right. So what we basically did last class is I think that was the first class, right? Was that the first class or the second class in Python for data analysis? I think that was the first class.
Yes, sir.
So if I may recall, I know that in that class I told us the meaning of Python, that is definition of Python as a programming language which is versatile. Uh, I told us different areas where Python can be applied. One of them is data analytics, which is the reason why we are using it. And then after that, I also explain variable concepts. That is how you can work with variable. I told us variable in programming, generally, they are values holders. They are containers which we use in introducing external values or information into a program, because we are going to see the application of the variable. Now, I also explained to us different softwares you need to install on your system before you can actually use Python for data analytics. So part of those softwares, I mentioned the server software, that is the one that harbors majority of the libraries, or let me say the applications you will need for either a data analysis or machine learning with Python. Then I mentioned Anaconda, which is like the powerhouse that houses all the necessary libraries, including frameworks that we need for analyzing data with Python. I showed us how to launch it to this window, if you remember. Once you click on the icon representing the anaconda, it will open like this. Then from here, you are expected to navigate to the framework you want to use. Remember, I talked about the framework. I told us that almost all the applications or the tools that are available out there for data analysis, they all provide a platform that helps us as data analysts to hold all the data aspects, or to bring all the data aspects in one place for us to be able to what? To analyze them. Remember, I make reference to Excel. In Excel, I said the framework is the spreadsheet, which gives us access to the inbuilt functions and also allow us to hold our data. Then in Python, I said Jupyter Notebook. I know I've discussed all this in my previous class. In Python, I mentioned what? Jupyter Notebook. So Jupyter Notebook is a customized platform just for us as data analysts, for us to be able to what? To bring all data aspects, including the required libraries, into one place for us to be able to harmonize them, or for interactivity. So that is why once you have launched the application like this, the next thing is for you to launch your framework, which is the Jupyter Notebook. As you can see, defined here. Jupyter Notebook is a web-based interactive computing notebook environment that allow you to edit and run human readable document while describing the data analysis. So it's just like an IDE, integrated development environment, customized for data analysis. Just like the way we have Visual Studio Code for also coding. So, but in our own case as data analysts, this is the one that is best suitable for all our analysis operations. So the first thing I'm going to do is to launch it. So once I click on it, it's going to open, like you can see here, it said a web-based, that is going to behave like a web application like browser, the way you open browser and then it will contact information from the server and thereafter display them to you. So it's going to launch on a browser. That is why you need to have a web browser in your system, such as Google Chrome or Firefox. You must have one of them because it's going to open. As you can see it here, you see the way it opened. So it's still opening. We have not seen the directory yet. So this is how you can simply launch your notebook. Now, once you launch the notebooks, it brings you to this directory. So the directory here represents the storage. So this is where you can actually navigate around different storages. So from here, you are expected to create a new notebook, and that new notebook should be created inside a folder. The reason is that supposing after part of your analysis, you want to probably continue in another system, provided that system have Anaconda that will offer you the same Jupyter notebook. All you need to do is to copy the file folder and then call it in that system. That is the reason why it is very important we always create our notebook in a known folder. So for that reason, I am going to leave here for now and go back to my system desktop storage. Yours can be in document. So you just determine where you want your analysis folder, a folder that is going to hold all your analysis resources, including the data you are going to call into the notebook. And the library or the framework itself, which is the notebook you are going to install, a single folder that will hold them together is what I want to create. So I can just right click and then go to new and then create a folder. I can just name this folder any name. So let's say what 3 weeks, just to identify it, 3 weeks. Let's say 3 weeks, um, 3 ways master class, 3 ways master class. So once I have named, I have created a folder. Once I have created a folder, the next thing I'm going to do is to populate that folder with the data that I intend to analyze. So the data you are given by the client, you make sure that they are all within this folder. So let me just go to where I have some data. Remember that I've taught us how to get data from cargo.com. So I have gotten some data. So I will just find a way of putting the data here. So let me go to the folder where I have some data. So I have all this data that I've selected: customers, customer two, healthcare, and what salary. These are two different data sets that I may want to analyze. So I'll quickly what copy them and then go to the folder I just created and then paste them in. So now we have gotten our data. So the next thing is for us to switch back to our Jupyter notebook directory to call to invoke this folder there. That is, this folder become part of it. So from this folder, whenever you need any data for analysis, you'll be calling them from this folder right in your notebook. So I switch back to my notebook, which is already open on a browser. So this is a directory like I told us. So the first thing I'm going to do here is for me to identify which of the main directory has the folder where I have my data is desktop. If yours was created on document, you have to open it. But in this case, I created my folder on desktop. So I will first of all open the folder. I want you to pay attention to this place. This is the root directory. The root directory. Now, at times, when you create your notebook in the root directory, you have issues. The issue is that, like I explained, for example, you started the analysis here, and then you want to move your work to another system. It will become difficult for you because when you are working with the root directory, you may not know specifically where you are actually storing your data. That is why I created a folder on desktop. Now, for me to reference that folder, I must open this room. You see, by just double clicking on it, you see that the URL of the directory have changed. Before we have just this root folder and this what slash, but now you have it this way, which means that at the moment you are in desktop. Now inside desktop, this is the folder we created. So I will not double click again to open it. So you can see that the directory have changed as well. So which means that you have came all the way from desktop down to what? To this folder. Now, of course, you can now see your data set. So now that I'm sure that I'm in the right directory, which is my folder, my analysis folder, then I can go ahead and create a new book. That is the integrated development environment, where I am going to be writing all my live code, where I am going to be writing my comment, where I'm going to be importing my libraries, where I am going to be performing all my analysis before I come to a conclusion summary, which I am going to tender to the stakeholder that will help them in making smart decisions. So once you are sure that you are in your own folder, then you go to what? New. So once you click on new, you select Python 3. That is the Python version you are using. Another department that could be using Python can probably choose any of these other options for different purposes. But this is the one we are choosing. Once you click on it, it will create the notebook inside your folder. So which means that by tomorrow, if I copy this folder and I paste it in another system, and once I install Anaconda in that system, I have the privilege of accessing everything that I was doing in my previous system. But unfortunately, it did not prompt us by itself, the interface, because at times it happened like this. Ordinarily, in your own system, it might happen that as soon as you click on this new and you have it here like on title for a few seconds, it will automatically redirect you to the environment. But where it does not happen, what you do, you double click on it by yourself. So once you double click, it will now open the new book. So finally, this is the notebook we are talking about. So this is the development environment where, as an analyst, you have to bring all your data aspects so that you can communicate. And the data itself, you are bringing from where you store them, you are going to bring them and store them in variables. That is the reason why I explained the concept of variable. Like I told us, Variables across all programming languages, they are used for holding values. They are used for introducing informations that were originally not built in the program memory, called the cache. So for example, now, if I want to perform an analysis and the analysis require Prosper, the question is that, does Python have Prosper built in it already? If the question is no, then how do I now add Prosper to Python memory? That is where you bring in a variable. It's part of what I have explained. You can go back and watch the first video. Now, the first thing we want to learn here, once you are able to assess your development environment, is for us to get acquainted to the environment. That is the rule of learning any application, which I have already taken care of in the first video, where I was explaining how you can name your notebook, how you can add another word cell, how you can delete cell, how you can write comments. All these have been taken care of in that first video. But most of those things that I did will be repeated today. So it's a good avenue for you to pay attention and follow me carefully. But that does not mean that you shouldn't go and watch that video, because I will only use the one that matters, the one I need. I may not touch all. So now the first thing you are expected to do is to uh, is to name this is to name this particular notebook. The reason why is very important you always work with a notebook with an ID is that when you are working, this particular notebook is assumed to be used to analyze one of your customers' data. When you want to analyze another customer data, you are not supposed to use the same notebook. So you have to create a new notebook for each project. Okay, that is how it works. Now, if that is how you are operating, it means that all the notebook will be created in that folder. All the notebook will be created in this folder. So how will you differentiate the notebook you are using for analyzing customer A from customer B if they are not uniquely named? And that is the reason why you click here to rename. And remember, I said when you are naming your notebook, you don't tamper with anything after the period, which is that dot. Because anything after the period is what defines the program extension. Programs extensions are like the format that the program use in saving its file, just like Excel with .doc, and so like CorelDRAW, JPG, and the rest of them. So for notebook, this is what Python notebook extension. So all you need to do is to clean the session before the period and insert your name. So let's say this is the first. This is the first. So let me name this first. And I told us something. When you are working with Python, please avoid space like this when you are naming anything. So when you say first class, for example, now that is what I want to type. First class, Python will have issue with what type of data is this space, because we've talked about types of data briefly. Now you have to add underscore. That is the best justification. Then after that, you click or rename. Then you will see that that place that was showing on title now have a defined name. So once you have done this, the next thing we want to do now is to import our libraries. So here I have to talk about library briefly. So what are libraries? Libraries across all programming language, not just Python. Libraries, they are containers of functions. They are pieces of software that hold some set of functions. And these functions are useful for us. And that is why we want to bring those libraries. Because, for example, I cannot load data into this notebook. And of course, if I don't have data here, I have nothing to analyze. But I need to acknowledge that there is a library that has the function for loading the data here. Until you load or import that library, it can never be possible for you to load that data here. Because it's just like you'll be writing the functions and you have not recognized the container with the function. So at the end of the day, when you write that function and run it, it will throw you errors. But the first thing is that for me to acknowledge the domain that contains the function, so that each time I run it, then that domain will respond. So that is the idea. So the next thing I want to do now is to teach us how to import library. Don't forget, libraries are containers of functions. Libraries are softwares that has been built by Python. So when you actually say that you can analyze data with Python, you are depending on Python what? Dependencies. That is, you are depending on these assembled functions that Python has already created. You are drawing them from this library and using them to draw insights from the given data. That is what you are simply doing. So that is why you cannot say because you analyze data with Python, therefore you are not a Python programmer. You have to go and learn Python on its own, where you will now be speaking the function raw, where you will now be learning how to write those functions, those code raw, not drawing them from a library. But for us here, all we need is to what? Access the Python functions from the given what? Libraries. So the first thing I'm going to do is to write a comment, which I expect us to be following. Train yourself as a programmer to learn how to explain your code with comment. Comments are not executable by any programming language. Comments are for narration. Comments are for explanation. How do you explain your code to yourself or to the next person the code will be transmitted to? So to start with, it's part of what I have explained in that video. Like I told us, I'll be using most of them. Now, how do I write a comment? I will simply press my shift button on my keyboard and hit number 3. It will create this hash icon. This is a comment notation in Python. So which means that anything you write in front of it will never be recognized by Python. Anything you write in front of it, it is not for the Python. That is a simple meaning. It is just for you to remind you what you are doing or what you did at that level. So I will write, I'll be using comment to explain whatever I'll be doing. So what I want to teach us now is what? How to import Python data analysis libraries. So if you are using Python for just data analysis, you have certain libraries that contain your functions. If you are using Python for machine learning, which is the advanced, which is like what we call data science, this same environment you are going to be working, but then you will be involving more detail or core libraries. So for data analysis, you need 2 main libraries at the moment. You need 3 to 4 of them, actually. But I am going to focus on 2 for now. When we get to where we want to plot graph with Python, let's say we draw certain insights and we want to visualize them with graph. That is when we will now involve the other two libraries out of the four libraries that are needed for data analysis with Python. So what are the libraries I'm bringing here? Now look at the syntax, how I'm going to declare those libraries. I will simply say import. I will say import pandas as PD. So what you have simply said is that import, why is showing in green word, is that a green color, is that is a keyword. I told us probably in that class that keywords are already used words in a program. So the program have already used import to store something. So you cannot use it to store anything. The program have already used as to store something. You can no longer use that as to store anything. So that is the syntax. And what we are saying is that going forward, anytime I type PD, that represents what? Pandas. You have the privilege of even saying import pandas as Prosper, which means that going forward, anytime you type Prosper, that Prosper in this program, in this notebook, automatically what? Represent pandas. So you can use any name. But just to have a more descriptive word, that is why we are using what? PD, so that we can easily know that, okay, it's pandas. Now, once you have done that, you press enter. Now, these pandas that I just install now or import is a Python library that harbors all the functions we need for reading data sets into the notebook and for performing various or mathematical what? Calculation and analysis. So that is the reason, because we need those functions for analyzing data. We need functions for adding values. We need functions for summarizing data. So therefore, we have to bring these pandas because those are the kind of functions that are wrapped in it. Now, I also need another library which assists in loading large volume of data set, because in Excel, I told us that Excel has a lot of limitation. That's why you shouldn't stop there. You can't say you are very good in Excel, so you want to stop there. If you stop there, it means that once you are given data set that is above 2 million, you cannot use Excel, because we are taught that a single sheet in Excel can only hold 1,048,576 records. So which means that if I am given data set that is above that, I cannot. But one of the major reasons why Python is mainly recognized for data analysis is that it can explore large data sets. No limits. Let the data set be up to billions, trillion. Python can load it without blinking eyes. So there is a library that makes that possible, that make Python to load large data sets. And that library is called NumPy. So I will also say import NumPy as NP. So once I've done this, there is another sub function that I need to reference, that I need to recognize separately. And the reason is that in case I start developing data manually, you can actually create your data set directly from Python, but that is going to be very difficult. That is going to be time consuming. That is why most time Python is not created for entering data. It's created for loading data in. Like the data will have been collected either via website using form or using spreadsheet application like Excel. So Python is not actually primarily created for you come and create your customer data as in from scratch here. No. But in case you want to do that, it is possible. So I am saying that in some cases, as I continue with my analysis, there are places where I will have to develop some data set just for certain illustration. So for that reason, I want to say from pandas, import series. So that series, the S should be in capital letter. Then you put a comma, then data frame. What we frame, if I'm developing data here, the data has to be framed. Remember, you know what that means. That is what it must have a horizontal length and what a vertical what length. So this is the function that will help me to frame it so that everything will be arranged in a two-dimensional structure. So, and remember the way I'm writing the code. The D is capital letter. The F must also be capital letter. So once you follow this syntax, so the next thing we need to know now is how to execute our code, our live code. This is not live code, it's just a comment. 1, 2, 3, they are live code. And each time you write live code, you must execute them. In other words, you have to make Python to recognize them. So once you execute it, if it doesn't throw any error, it means that Python have duly what? Recognized your code. So in this case, if I run it and it doesn't output any error, it then means that Python have successfully imported what? Pandas into this notebook. Then the same thing, NumPy into this notebook, which means that now they are active. So if I am speaking the function in them, they are going to what? Respond to me. That is what it means. And how do I know if the code has been executed? You see this place here. There is no number inside it here, which means that you have not run this code. Once a code in a cell is executed, this place will read a value, either 1 or 2. So let's run it. Where do you run it? You click on this icon. So once I click here, you wait for some time. So it's importing the library now. And the way I will know if it has completed the process is when I can find a value. When it's showing that asterisk, it means that what? The program is busy. Now, once it changed to 1, it means that what? Work done. Now you can see that what? The libraries are here. Now, in case you are doubting whether Python did not do anything, let me deliberately make a mistake here. Let me put small letter F here and run it again. You will see error. So that you know that anytime you run your code and you did not see error, just that is a confirmation that what? Everything is okay. So you can see it now. And anytime you are interpreting error is another skill set you need to have, because sometimes you can see bunch of errors. So you need to know, you don't need to bother yourself reading all the line. Just go to what I call the key error. The key error is the last one. So check what it's saying. That place will tell you where the error is. Look at it here. You can see it. Import cannot import name data frame from Pandas. So you already know, oh, this is where the error is. Then you can now come here and what? Do the needful. Then you can now execute it again. You can press shift button on your keyboard plus enter in order to what? To do the work of coming here to click as shortcut. Shift plus enter. Hold down the shift button and press enter. So instead of you coming here, you can be doing that to continue. If you press Control plus enter, it will execute it, but it will not add extra row for you. So if you now want to add additional row, then you now come here and be clicking. That is if you are executing with the Control plus enter. Control plus enter will execute the correct cell, but it will not give you additional row. But Shift plus enter will execute the correct cell and give you additional row. So if I press it here now, you can see it. That is Control plus what? Enter. It executed it the 4th time, but I don't have what? Additional row. But if I click here and press Shift and Enter, you see that it executed it the 5th time and provided me what? Another row. Or you come here and click here. Okay? Now, so what we have done so far, we have successfully imported our libraries. So now we have all the functions we need available. So that will now take me to my slide. My slide. So the first thing we want to do is how to load a CSV data. In other words, how to load data. Because now our libraries that will offer us the functions are ready. So if I'm writing a function that is harbored by pandas, I have pandas present. If I'm writing a function that is harbored by NumPy, I have NumPy ready. So now the next stage is that this particular data set that you have here, this very one, this is a CSV, then this is CSV. So I'm going to load two CSV data here. I will load this one, and then I will load this one. This one is pure Excel data, but it is not complete. It's going to throw error. So I will load this one and this. So there are different ways of loading CSV file and what Excel file, because any data you are given to analyze, the company might give it to you in CSV format or in Excel format. So once it's given to you in CSV format, then you use a CSV function in Pandas to read it. If it's given to you in a pure Excel as a worksheet format, then you use the function to read it. So that is why I want to separate them. So I want to start with loading this particular one. Now, you have the data here. Let's go back to our working environment. So from here, what I will simply do, let me use comment to explain. Loading data frame or data set. So let me just name it loading CSV data frame. Remember, we can also call it data frame. All right. Now, there's a syntax. Now, the whole of this data that you have here must be stored, must be recognized by Python. Python must store it in its memory. You cannot say because you have it here now, Python start accessing it. No. What we are going to do is to store the whole of that data as a frame, as a data frame in Python, in a variable. So I will start by creating the name of the variable. I will say the name of this variable is data1. And then I will say equals to. Remember the variable concept that I've taught you before, which means that the whole of that data set, we are bringing it to Python memory and it will be recognized in Python as data1. So anytime I want to reach out to the whole of that data, I will just be typing what? Print data1 or just data1. Now, the question is that the function that will read the data from here and put it here where you are analyzing is coming from which library? It's coming from Panda. You remember, and you have already said that Panda in this notebook is represented as what? PD. So I will now say what? PD. Can you see it now? Because now I am referencing the domain or the software that has the function I want to use. Then the what we call concatenation. Concatenation means what? You are joining them together. And that is depicted by dot. So what we are saying is that what? The function you are about to call is in pandas. And once panda have read data, store whatever it will give us into what? Data1. That's what we are saying. So pd dot what? Pd dot read is one of the function. You can see that as soon as I type, it came out with that color, which means that what is an inbuilt. Read underscore CSV. Then you open the parenthesis bracket because it's a function. Now, once you open the parenthesis bracket, when writing any function across all programming languages or even apps, it means that the function is asking for parameters. The function is asking for input. The function is asking for arguments. And what are all these that I just mentioned? They are simply the food. They are simply the data the function needs. So you have to supply them before the function can react accordingly. So you cannot just open it and say, okay, give me the function. No. So it's asking for an input. What is that input? The name of the file is what it's asking for. The file you want to read. Give me the name of the file inside that bracket. And that file is a string. The name of the file, which is what? Look at it here. Customers. That is the name of the file. Customers. Now, customer is a string, therefore it must be quoted. It's not a number. So what I'm going to do to save my time, just come back here, right click on it and select what? Copy path. Then switch back to your notebook and then open your string. This is it, as in the quotation. It can be single quote or double quote. Anyone can go. Then paste, Ctrl V, that name. That is the part that you copy. Then if you now run this code like this now, shift and enter. Okay, let me click here so that you can be seeing it. You can see that it's trying to run. Now there is error. So as a programmer, you must know how to debug. Debugging is part of what you should have. That is why they say programmers are critical thinker. Programmers are solution providers. Why? Because when they are writing code, there will always be error that will give them some headache to what? To figure out. So that will have trained them. That will have expanded their thinking ability. They don't give up easily. You don't say because you have this code now, you close your laptop and go home. The next day now, you say, I will tell Mr. Prosper that I did not do the assignment, so there were too many errors. That will not be an excuse. You must stay true and you have to research at times. You can't be a good IT person, you don't research. Sometimes you go outside your way and research on problem. If you go to ChatGPT, which I've taught us in Excel, if you see an error like this now, and you are trying to find out, let's say you are your own, you don't have access to me to help you, and you want to help yourself, you can copy the whole of this error the way it is now, like this now. Just copy it like this. Go to ChatGPT and tell ChatGPT what could cause this error. From there, you will not learn many things. So now, but I'm able to factor out. Look at what he's saying here. No such file or directory. Once I see this, as an expert, as an experienced person, I already know where the error is. It means that Python could not locate this place. That's what he's saying. That I cannot locate this file here. I cannot locate your desktop and then locate what? The folder, and then locate the file where, locate the folder where the file is. So it's a directory error. So what I will do is that I will use relative method. What do I mean by relative method? Because this method is absolute method where you are recognizing all the directory. For example, now we recognize desktop, that the folder is created on desktop. Then when you get to desktop, then from desktop, you will see this folder name. Then when you get to this folder, you will now see what? Customer.csv. That is what we are telling Python. Python is responding that all these processes are too long. I could not trace all these rooms. Why can't you just tell me the element that file is related to? It's just like family system. Me going to your village now, I can be shouting Mr. Victory. They might not know. Once I add that Wabulu, Mr. Victory, sorry in case I not pronounce that name very well. Once I add Wabulu, you will see that that family, that town, they will not know, oh, which of the Victory I am talking about. So that is what is happening here. So I want to tell Python that don't bother yourself tracing the person by itself. Just trace the person through the grandpa. That is what I want to do now. How do you speak that in programming? You will just come to where you have this desktop. Just delete it and just put 2 dots there. That 2 dots means what? Locate this with the element it's related to. So if I press enter now, accepted, you can see once this place read a value and there's no error, it means the data is present right now in Python. So how do I call the data? If you are here if the data is here, so which container is holding it? You come down and type exactly what you have here. Data 1. Remember, I told us that what we are doing is that we are sending this function to go and call this data by its name and store the whole of it in data 1, which means that in this notebook, Python recognizes the whole of that data as what? Data 1. Then how do you now call it? You have to go to the next line and call exactly the same name you use here, then and run it. So you see your data here. So this is the data automatically. So at this point here, I'm going to stop here. You are going to share your screen and get to this same place. I've told us that this is not like a set class where we were just running it without performing some things in the class. So most of the work here, when I finish my own, you do your own. So for those of us that are joining with laptop, you are going to share your screen right now. And then what you are going to do for me is exactly what I have done. So you can take your phone probably and snap the syntax and replicate it. Remember where I started from? I started by creating my folder, adding the data inside. Then before creating my notebook, inside what? That folder. Then importing my library. And then finally, I have been able to load my data. So you must, this is the first thing you must know. If you don't know how to load data here, there will be a challenge. But before I allow us to do that, let me just do the one of Excel, how to load Excel, because your own might be in Excel form, so that you will not have issue with it. So this one is loading CSV. Then if I want to load Excel, so loading, you can see how I'm using comment to explain everything I'm doing. Loading a worksheet, data frame. So I'm going to say you cannot use this name again. If you use it, Python will allow it, but it means that you have automatically what? Override the previous one. So I will just have a unique way of naming my variables. This one is data 2. Then equals to, you don't have to import the libraries again. All this one is only once you import them. They can be accessible from any cell. So you can always say pd dot read underscore. Now it will not be Excel. Once you are loading Excel file, it will no longer be CSV. Then you open the bracket, then you put the string. Now I'll go back to this and copy the one for Excel. This is Excel, but it's not complete. How do I know that it's not complete? You can see XLXS. Here now, you don't have what? You don't have the first S. So it's not complete. I believe something happened. So, and you should know the icon. You can see the way this table icon means is CSV. Then if it is a cell, it will show you this file icon. So the same way I did it the other time, you right click and select what? Copy path, then come back here, then paste it. Now, another way you can do this easily, if you don't want to use relative, just use only the name. Delete every other thing. Use only the name, the actual name of that file. That will also load it. That will also load it. So there are different ways. If one is not working, you deploy the other. Now, if I say data 2 now to call it, now normally, since it's Python, we will have said this print, because that is what we are taught. They will supply the what? The argument as what? Data 2. Then if you run it like this, you will get the data. But look at the way it displays it compared to the way it displayed it the other time. So this is not giving us a proper structure. So that is why, since this is a notebook that is programmed with Python, I don't need to be saying print. I will just call the name of my data set. That is all, like this, and then press it here. So you see that you now have it displayed the way it was in Excel, because this one is more understandable for analysis. So guys, this is where I stop first. So it depends on how fast you are able to give me what I'm asking you. That will determine whether we will continue from here. So over to you, Mr. Vitri, Mr. Jolly. Good morning, welcome.
Thank you, sir.
assignment. I'm giving to us an assignment. The assignment is create a new notebook and then import pandas, numpy as library, then load at least 3 different data sets into it. Is that understood?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Jolly, so we are ending the class now. Okay, you are back.
Class. Morning, sir.
Yeah, morning. Welcome, sir.